I use wrist locks while I'm training,
Okay.
but my partner says they're cheap. So are wrist locks legal?
Those are two different questions. Wrist locks are legal, and no, they're not cheap. There are a lot of people, just like a previous question that we had, where they get caught with a wrist lock and they would rather blame it on the move being cheap or cheesy or a dirty move rather than learn how to defend it or keep their hands and wrists in a place that doesn't lead them to getting submitted or, more importantly, hurt. My first problem typically with wrist locks are they are light switch moves. They're either on or they are off. And I see a lot of people slam on wrist locks in a way that doesn't leave their partner enough time to tap, especially when it's a lower belt and they're not cognizant or they're not aware that that's even a thing that can happen. You need to be in control of your body, and in a training scenario, you always need to give your partner an opportunity to tap. If you're injuring your partners with wrist locks, and wrist locks take a long time to heal, it's a very frustrating injury. If you're injuring people with wrist locks, then you're going too hard. Maybe one, okay, that was a mistake, but you shouldn't be injuring people with any techniques you apply, wrist locks included. I typically use wrist locks as setups or traps for other things, including grip breaks. How often do I wrist lock people? I probably, while rolling in an evening, if I roll 8-minute rounds, I'll have 15 wrist locks. I very rarely, almost never make someone tap with a wrist lock. And this is going to be a controversial thing that I'm saying. Wrist locks don't work. Right? Now, you would say, sure they do. They can break. I've tapped to wrist locks, and I've tapped to wrist locks. I've tapped many people to wrist locks. Twice in competition, I have shredded people's wrists, destroyed the wrist, and they didn't tap. One of those times was in a bronze medal match at Pans. I broke his wrist. He won by 2 points. He taped his wrist from his knuckles to his forearm. And it's not that I gave up position, it's just I used it as a grip break from standing. And he ended up getting the medal and I didn't. And after that scenario, it was the second time that's happened to me, I made the decision that I was never going to attempt to finish a match with a wrist lock. However, I use wrist locks a lot for all sorts of things. You leave your hand in a stupid place, cool. If I'm in an armbar position, sure, I'll try to gooseneck it, but I'm never using it as a way to finish a match, usually to facilitate a movement or as a grip break. And I tap plenty of people like that, but you have to be really careful how you apply wrist locks. I've just seen a lot of people pop their wrist, break their wrist, and just not tap. So no, they're not cheesy. Yes, they're important to be able to do. They're important for your holistic game. It is important that you have control when you're doing it. It's important that you don't tap your partners. It's important that you don't injure your partners trying to tap them, but they're not cheesy. They're important, but be aware of how viable they are in a situation where a medal is on the line or your life. I probably wouldn't put my life on the line for a wrist lock.